What happens when you bring green and tech together? That is exactly what the Belgian Ambassador to Kenya, Mr. Peter Maddens, is trying to do. On this week's episode, we explore the EU relationship between Kenya and, well, EU, and to understand where the risk lies, where we're not being invested in. And a great line was, we need to admit where we went wrong, and for the EU to kind of say, actually, you guys know what you're doing. Tune in to Tech Talk Africa Season 2, Episode 6 for a conversation that touches on diplomacy, philosophy, education, and of course, tech. Ambassador Peter Maddens.
That's me.
Welcome to Tech Talk Africa.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You are a man who has experience in both Kenya, the region.
A little bit.
But you have special roots in Kenya, don't you?
I do.
You studied here.
Well, my dad was one of my predecessors, and I went to school at St. Mary's. Yeah, I finished high school there.
Wow.
About 50 years ago, but let's not talk about that.
No.
Right?
And how did your experience in St. Mary's shape your view of Kenya?
Oh, of Kenya?
Yeah, because you had the local context, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in those days, it's like many international schools, I guess.
Yeah.
St. Mary's was an enormously diverse place.
Okay.
And it actually showed how open and welcoming and diverse Kenya actually is.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, one of my biggest, no, I can't call it a surprise. One of the best things I experienced coming back 45 years later was that had not changed.
Okay.
That Kenya was still this very open, very dynamic, very diverse place.
Yeah.
That allowed everybody to, do his thing. And that we learned that at St. Mary's. I mean, we learned that we lived that at St. Mary's, in those days.
And is that what contributed to your interest in the digital space? The familiarity?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can in my job, and maybe with, the way I look at the world, I don't think you can avoid being interested or wanting to know about the digital space.
Yeah.
When my wife and I arrived here in 2021, It was the back end of COVID.
Yeah.
And our embassy was actually in a bad shape because one of our diplomats had died of COVID.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And somebody on the support staff had died as well. So we'd actually had, my team had actually had quite the traumatic experience. Now, the diplomat who died, she had focused her work in large part on the human rights space.
Okay.
And purely this may sound trivial, but purely from an HR perspective, I decided that I did not want her successor to be identified with her.
Okay.
So we changed the focus of her work
to
digital and climate, or digital and green, away from human rights. Not that human rights isn't important, but it was all about making sure that she wouldn't be compared to her predecessor.
Oh, right. So, now.
So that she could have her own space and not constantly be told, but, she was so great. And because that, it was traumatic enough to be succeeding somebody who had passed.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that she had her own space.
Wow.
And so that's how we got into, as an embassy, we got into the green thing and into the digital thing. And then, of course, 3 years later, the ministry has the intelligence.
Yeah.
A ministry with an intelligent decision. That sounds like an oxymoron, but okay.
Which ministry? Kenya?
Foreign Affairs. My Foreign Affairs ministry made the unbelievably wise and intelligent choice of sending us a PhD in mathematics with a postdoctoral specialization in AI.
Yes.
And so that not only gave us, not only allowed us to be interested, but also to be, to speak with some kind of expertise and authority. Yeah. So that's how we got into all that space. Yeah.
And so why green and digital?
First of all, digital is so intense in terms of energy.
It is.
That you have to be green to not do more damage with your digital. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, the energy.
So that's a first link, and secondly, the more green elements you start introducing into the way you live, as an individual, as an entity, or as a society at large, that we can only make progress if we start applying tech to that.
That's why you have the clean tech and the extraction of the raw materials,
exactly.
the chips we're manufacturing,
exactly.
the AI, and the compute.
The only way you increase you decrease your carbon footprint is by becoming technologically more savvy. So there's a link, not just in the process, but because of the link in the process, the way of living also becomes interlinked.
I believe you're one of the few, correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of the few embassies that are spearheading digital and green, right? In the country or even in the continent?
At least to the extent that we have, we retrofitted the embassy to be totally carbon neutral, or at least net zero.
I saw that,
So then we're the first in Nairobi. I do know that we're also the first in the Belgian diplomatic network. But nobody's come to me and said, "Well, we have one like that in, I don't know, Malawi or in Malaysia or in Bolivia." No, nobody's come to me to say that they have a net zero embassy there as well. So, but I know for a fact that we're the first in Nairobi and we're the first in the Belgian diplomatic network.
So you've built a foundation.
We've retrofitted the embassy.
Okay. I hope.
Solar panels and water recycling, and we produce our own cooking gas, and we grow our own vegetables hydroponically.
Yeah, taking the focus back to digital.
Sure.
Belgium sits at the heart of the EU's digital policy architecture. So what does each side bring to the table that the other genuinely needs? When I say each side, I mean Kenya and Belgium.
Well, I mean, like you said, we're part of the EU space, digital space, which because we're part of the EU, that gives us a large platform to build on, and it also gives you a large menu.
Yeah, it does. Yes.
And wherever we're part of that, we're happy to be that. I mean, for example, we've over the last couple of years we've worked a lot on. There's a twinning project between the data protection authorities in our two countries. That we had, 3 or 4 meetings, at least 2 here in Nairobi. Yeah. Between the experts on data protection, and I think that went really, really well. Yeah. The Kenyan side also visited Brussels once or twice. Meetings like that or collaborations like that are part of what is probably going to allow the EU to take what they call an adequacy decision vis-a-vis Kenya, which basically means that your compliance with data protection rules and GDPR are good enough that we consider Kenya to be a space equal to the European Union space, which would actually be pretty good. And I think we're kind of proud that we can be part of that with projects like that. Yeah. There's a bunch of Belgian there's, just to give you a couple of examples within and outside of the digital space. The first guy who built a hotel in E10 focused on athletes coming to train at altitude was a Belgian guy. Okay. Yeah. So that was the first athlete hotel in E10 is a Belgian hotel.
So he saw that.
The first carbon neutral hotel in Masai Mara is a Belgian guy. Yeah. And then we have companies like Sulco, which has built over the last 10 or 12 years, is starting to build the last mile connectivity infrastructure for the counties. So that's basically the connection between the counties and the central government runs on an infrastructure built by a Belgian company. And then we have Odoo. I'm sure you've seen the signs.
I've seen the signs. Yeah.
You know what they do? Yeah. Do you? Okay, good.
No, I don't. Let me not embarrass myself. Tell me what they do.
They've actually built a platform that gives all the tools necessary for an SME to run itself. So you have your contracts management, your procurement, your accounting, your personnel management, your agenda, everything, all in an app that fits on your phone. So you can run your SME from your phone.
Oh, hence why you're saying there's niche companies here by Belgium. Oh, okay.
Then there's another guy who refurbishes computers, sells them affordably here on the market. So you can get a 2-3-year-old HP laptop, which is actually a pretty good machine, and you can buy that for 25,000 shillings.
And that aligns with the climate agenda reefer.
There you go.
You don't need to.
That's a circular economy.
That's a circular economy. There you go. Okay, I can see.
It all links up, right?
No, it does. It does. Now, on to the question on attracting foreign digital investments. So you've got foreign digital investments, you've got the regulatory environment. How do you think our current regulatory conditions can either attract or deter Belgian investments?
Well, the first thing I have to mention is that a couple of months ago, we signed a double taxation agreement.
What's a double taxation
agreement? Well, it means that the companies which are or individuals who are based in both countries can pick under which country's fiscal rules they want to be taxed.
Okay.
And that they don't get taxed in the other company.
Okay.
So that, of course, is a huge advantage for companies who are investing here in Kenya, or for Kenyan companies who want to invest in Belgium.
Okay.
That they don't get taxed in both countries.
So that's a benefit.
Yes.
For anyone looking to move to Kenya. What are your thoughts on policy then? If regulation has its own way of being interpreted, what then do we have to say for policymakers? Is that also presenting its own challenges?
I mean, especially here in Kenya, and if you compare it to other countries on the continent, I think you guys are far beyond in terms of awareness on the needs in the policy space digitally.
Yeah,
I think you guys are far beyond most of your peers on the continent. You're actually even far beyond most of us in terms of awareness about the policy needs in the digital space.
Absolutely. I agree.
I mean, the big step, of course, was M-Pesa, which showed how far you can go and how capable you actually are in applying new technologies to actual on the ground day-to-day problems for people. I'll never. I was living in Tanzania. 20 years ago, I was ambassador in Tanzania.
Okay.
When Safaricom introduced M-Pesa also in Tanzania, and actually no, they hadn't introduced it yet, but everybody was looking at Kenya and looking at this new thing called M-Pesa and going,
what's that?
What is that? Yeah. That sounds so crazy, so amazing. And then they introduced it in Tanzania, and a friend of mine who ran a big hospital in Dar es Salaam.
Okay.
And in the meantime, it's become the referral hospital for mother-child care. But in those days, it was basically a hospital that did orthopedics and eye surgeries.
Okay.
And at some point, they were dealing with cataracts. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they would send out buses to go pick up patients to bring them to Dar es Salaam for the operation and take them back home.
Okay.
And that was very, laborious to send out a bus, and then it would take days and weeks to fill the bus and then bring them back and then bring them back home.
Yeah.
When PESA came in, instead of sending a bus, they would just send money.
And they would get on the bus on their own time.
On their own time, and they would just send the bus fare. Which, of course, meant that that whole part of his operation was no longer necessary.
Yeah, so they became more efficient.
Yeah, so again, tech solutions to everyday problems. Mm-hmm. And you guys have been doing that for, 25 years now since the introduction of M-Pesa? So, you're probably stronger in all that. This is the kind of stuff that we can learn from you, and that we have to learn from you.
So Kenyan solutions to global problems.
Sure.
We have solutions for global problems.
You have solutions for everyday problems.
Everyday problems.
Yeah. Oh. Not necessarily global, individual problems on a global scale, yes.
Now onto governance and AI. What do you want to touch on? Ooh. What are your thoughts on AI? What are you foreseeing? What do you not want to see? You started the you co-chair the Techplomacy Connect
with Philip Tigo.
Yeah. Anything. You're the star of the show.
Well, I mean, like you said, we're honored to have been asked by Philip to co-chair his Connective, and I think that's one of those fora where the fact that you have these conversations is unbelievably productive and helpful.
Okay.
What it helped us do is to connect with the Kenyan, and through the Kenyan delegation, the many delegations of the G77 during UNEA 7 in December.
Yes.
Where the world actually adopted an AI. A green AI resolution, which was a landmark. I think is a landmark, and it's going to be a step. It's going to prove to be a stepping stone to more important things. And it is, including because of that conversation that our embassy here and Belgium in general have had with Philip Tigo and Kenya in general.
Yeah.
That I think that connection was instrumental for that resolution to pass. the conversations we have on governance are probably going to be also very important, and it's all kinds of governance. It's the privacy, data protection, but it's also the funding and investment side. Governance plays in both spaces. And especially on the funding side, I'm fundamentally convinced that we need to keep that conversation going to a point where, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
One of your problems is, and you see that in many spaces. One of your problems is that the markets are not convinced that the risk here in Kenya is that there's less risk here in Kenya, or that the risk levels are the same as in, for example, in Europe or North America. And that's just the markets determining that.
Yeah.
Now, we as a public sector can come in and help with de-risking those situations.
Yeah.
But it is our conversations and our connection that it will contribute to lowering the risk perception.
Okay.
There are risk factors here. I mean, if you look at the Kenyan economic data objectively, like on an Excel sheet, right, you will see a debt situation that's concerning. You'll see a population growth that is outside of our norms. Okay. And that isn't followed by growth that covers that population. Right. You'll see an export base, which is, and that's something that you have to work on. But what you export has low added value. Now we have to work on adding the value here. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You need to stop exporting oranges so that the juice can get extracted in India or in Europe. You need to extract the juice here and export the juice.
That's where the value is. Yeah.
Right. That's where you add the value. Right. But all those things, you put them all together, and an objective investor who only looks at the Excel table will see, well, there's it's not, they're not there yet.
Making sense. Right? Yeah.
The numbers don't gel. Yeah. So, and I think that is where your progress needs to happen, and it's happening.
It is. No,
it's absolutely happening. I mean, look at where we are here. Yeah. Your offices are in Tatu City. Yeah. You just look at this place.
I love.
This is it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing, and you're doing it all over, and of course it takes a while. Right.
Right.
So there's stuff happening in places like
so we do have our heads above water. Yes. And I guess that's why experience such as yours, communicating back to be it the EU Commission, globally, it's saying actually...
that's partially my job, but it's also... And it's also... Actually, that's even more so the job of your own diplomacy. Okay. It's not my job.
It's not your job.
To sell Kenya and Belgium.
You're right.
I had a conversation with a political actor once. This actually happened in Argentina, but it could have happened here. Mm-hmm. The guy was asking me, "When are you bringing investments?"
No, that's not your job.
I said to him, "My job is to take your money, not to bring you money. I'm here to sell my stuff to you. That means you pay me. I'm here to find Kenyans, or in that particular case, it was Argentinians, to come and invest in Belgium, which means they bring their money to me. Mm-hmm. If you want to get Belgians to invest, it's your ambassador in Brussels that has to convince the investor to come here. Yeah. If you want to take my money, you have to sell your avocados, your oranges, your mattresses, your tech. You have to sell it to me. It's not my job to sell that to Belgians. It's your job to sell that. That being said, we work closely together. Okay. Ambassador Bitange in Brussels and I we talk to each other at least twice a week on various things, and a lot of it has to do with the business climate and how we bring together business forces from both countries.
So, with regards to state security versus digital rights, where are you on that?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
That's a good one. Again, we were talking earlier about the what's it called? The data protection and the EU adequacy decision.
And adequacy, yeah.
Right? I think that's going to be a big step in the right direction.
Okay.
Because it basically means that we will be considering, the digital space in Kenya to be adequate for us to operate in.
Yeah.
Also in terms of security.
Yeah.
I think there's still an issue with GDPR, but we'll probably be with privacy and data protection. But we're working heavily on that.
An issue on whose end? Our end, the European end?
I think probably a little bit of both.
But I'm sure that.
But again, I mean, a lot of it. A lot of it also has to do with, I guess, a change in attitude.
Yeah.
We kept thinking it was right.
Thank you for admitting that.
To tell you what you have to want.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just do or think,
No.
what you have to want.
Yeah.
If you don't want what we have, you're doing it wrong. That's our attitude.
There's a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
And we got to stop doing that.
Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
But we have to stop doing that. And I think now's the time.
Okay.
And I think we can do a deal. This is a real, high-level thinking, no high-level idea, but, you've been, in most countries on the continent pretty soon will have been independent longer than they were ever a colony.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And around about the same time,
Yeah.
you will also start electing presidents who were born in the independent country of which they're a president.
Exactly.
Right?
So, yeah.
Your previous president was not.
No.
Your current president was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a change.
It's
That's a generational change.
different,
right?
shifted mindset.
So, okay, that watershed, that historical watershed, is the time where we can actually start making, I think we can make it a deal. Okay, we'll stop telling you what you want, right? What you have to want, right?
Okay.
If you accept that not everything that's wrong finds its origin in the colonial period, you've made mistakes in the last 60 years as well.
Hey,
Right?
yeah, okay, yeah.
We're just deciding that we're going to have a different kind of relationship from here on out.
Okay.
But that means that we have to stop telling you what you have to want. And you have to accept that you've made mistakes in the last 60 years. Right?
Okay.
And when we do that,
All right.
then we can move forward, including in this space. So I look at a company like Odoo that decides that its Africa base is going to be here in Nairobi. If I look at a Belgian company like Elewa that does a lot of recruiting and recruiting of coders and tech experts for a Belgian company, and they're based here.
Yeah.
You look at a company, and it's not a Belgian company, but it's Swedish guys like Rome with their electric vehicles, which is a Kenyan company, but it's Swedes who started it. If you look at a guy like Loic with his carbon neutral safari camp, all that is only possible because it's Kenya.
It's Kenya, and
you couldn't do a carbon neutral safari camp in Belgium. But it has to be here in Belgium.
But there's no camp in Belgium, so
no, exactly that. So
so what you're saying is because of Kenya that these businesses are innovating and flourishing.
Yes.
Oh, I like that approach, but what about the skeptic who will say that you can no longer innovate in Europe?
Well, that's not true.
That's not true?
No, because look at Odoo.
Yeah.
Oh, Odoo's a Belgian company. It's been in existence for maybe 10 or 15 years. €3 billion turnover on apps on a phone. But they decided that their African base is going to be here. And it's not just a sales base. It's also,
There's the culture.
Yes.
There's the good weather.
Yes.
There's no internet.
Yeah,
there's fresh food.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's discount the rainfall.
And there's the people.
There's the people. So we're good people.
Even more than all the rest of it, because there's lots of places where there's good food. There's lots of places where the weather is fine.
But they're not Kenya.
But they're not Kenya, and they're not Kenyans.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everything you're saying. How has the reception around the Techplomacy Connect been from our side? I know Ambassador Philip has been very instrumental. You co-chair.
We do, and when
I'm tying it back to what we were talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when we have our meetings, the fun thing is there's the non-Kenyan participants are often public sector government.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Kenyan side, it's private sector.
Do you find that odd?
No. Well, it's surprising, but it's good surprising.
Oh, What's good surprising?
Good surprising is that's the way it should be. I mean, there should be less of us around that table. Yeah, there's still a bit of skepticism. Yes.
Yeah.
But, we're sending out. We're making sure that the word gets out. That Kenya's the place to.
Kenya's the place to be.
Kenya's the place to be, and from Kenya, you broaden it, bring it to elsewhere.
So you start with Kenya, then we are. What's the word? The rest of the continent believes that if they can do it in Kenya, then the rest of us can do it. But our development, not ratio, the rate at which we've developed compared to the rest of the African countries is very different.
Yes.
So what do they need to do to be up to par?
Well, there's a couple of things that you were very smart with over the years. Mm-hmm. You were very open to private initiative.
Okay.
But most importantly, your investment in education.
Yeah, skills.
I mean, I moved to Tanzania, so that was my first time in the development space, if you will, in development in a job where development cooperation was an important part of the portfolio. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2003, so that's like 20 odd years ago.
Okay.
And you can, of all the sectors in which we all work on development cooperation, infrastructure, justice, health, you name it.
Yeah.
I actually very quickly became convinced that there's only one that's the top of the list,
which is
education.
Yeah.
I
agree.
You can avoid somebody getting sick by teaching them to wash their hands.
Yes.
What's the verb in that sentence?
Teaching?
Yeah.
Teaching.
Right. See?
Teaching. It's
teaching.
At the core.
It's at the core of everything.
Okay.
You can't build a highway without an engineer. An engineer has to have what?
No.
Education.
Education, right? And skill.
You can't build a law system without lawyers who've gone to university and taught the law.
No.
Teaching is the core of everything.
Yeah.
Education. It always comes down to education, and Kenya in that respect was incredibly smart in investing in that from the very beginning.
Okay.
I mean, your first president, your second president, your third president. Your second president was a teacher. Your third president, free. What is it? Free secondary school even was Kibaki's big thing?
Yes, Kibaki's big thing.
Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, no, you've been incredibly smart about that, and that's why you've been able to
spearhead a lot of the conversations happening on the continent.
And run far ahead of the rest of the.
And is that why then Kenya's the place for, when I read a lot of the reports from, World Bank, FCDO, you name a few, there's this Africa Digital Initiative or Digital Africa Initiative. And quite a lot of money is committed for that initiative, towards those initiatives, sorry. Where is the money, number one? Number two, how does it work?
Yeah, commitment doesn't always get followed up.
Commitment does not always get followed up.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So that's just it.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, it should. Or don't commit. But often I guess you get caught in the moment. Oh yeah, this is a good idea. Let's make a promise.
And then you go play with the numbers and realize, actually, no, this doesn't make sense.
Politics is all about the immediate effect.
But we can't politicize technology.
It needs to be more honest. Yeah.
And why are they not being honest? Because this is tech. This is not. this is
again
education.
I think it's an attitude from before.
Okay.
So that's true public-private partnerships.
Let me take a note.
Private-public partnerships.
Yeah.
Are the way we're going in any case, right?
Yeah.
In the whole development sector, not just in the tech sector.
Yeah.
In the whole development sector, we're working towards involving the private sector more in development, de-risking investments.
Okay.
Having the private sector carry out things that in the past have been carried out by
public sector.
by public sector actors. USAID closing down, most of us also greatly reducing our development budgets means that we have to figure out another way you have to figure out another way
we all do.
To fund your future development. And how do you do that? You do that with a lot of investment or with a lot of involvement from our private sector. And with the reduced amounts of money that we have, we can help by de-risking that investment.
I have a concern, though, and I understand governments are changing, funding cycles are changing, how the world is changing. If we allow private sector to run the show, they're not governed by a public sector civil servant, public officer's mindset for the people, with the people, right? The private sector individual is all about return on investments. Are we, allow me to use the word screwed. Are we screwed, essentially?
I think it's a question of finding the right balance.
Fine, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
When everything is run by the public sector, it's not right either.
No.
But when everything is run by the private sector, it isn't right either.
Yeah.
There's a really funny story. We were living in New York in 2012 when Hurricane Sandy hit New York.
Okay.
And at one point during the storm, everything went. Electricity, gas, water.
Every utility you could
internet,
think of. Yeah.
Public transport, schools, everything closed down.
Okay.
The first thing that came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Was it internet?
No.
No? Oh, no. What was it?
Public transport.
Uh-huh.
You know why?
No.
Because that was the only thing that hadn't been privatized.
Which brings it back to my point.
Well, yeah, it does. Of course it does. I know that. But, that's what I'm saying. But everything in the public sector doesn't actually work perfectly either. So we need to find a balance.
What about public sectors who will be compromised? Because if much of the revenue from taxation funds public sector,
the problem with if you give all the responsibility to the public sector, you're into electoral cycles and short-termism.
Short-termism.
Yeah.
What short-termism?
Well, because politicians, the long term for a politician is the next election. After the next election, there's nothing. See?
Okay.
So in the public sector, there's stuff there's challenges as well.
Yes, I totally
So we need to find a balance. And when you say yes to one guy running all the satellites in the world, yes, absolutely. But that's why we need to that's why you need the public sector is actually there to do the regulation, not to execute.
Yeah.
Let the execution happen through let the development be executed, be carried out by people who actually know stuff, and let the public sector be the regulator.
So you need a skilled workforce,
yes,
who know what they're doing,
yes,
and the public sector to regulate said workforce.
But a very an honest public sector.
Do you think we'll get an honest public sector in this day and age? To wrap it up
again, again, something that we need to learn. Mm-hmm. Politics today is too polarized.
Yeah.
But it's too polarized, I think, because you can't do gray tones in social media. And politics is all about gray tones.
Gray tones and social media. I'm taking that down. Yeah. Okay.
Social media can only do black or white. It can't do gray.
Okay.
And politics is all about gray.
Wow. Polarization, social media.
Yes.
But the foundation is still education.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But then there's another thought.
Okay. Let's hear it.
What is social media and what is AI other than more information circulating more rapidly amongst more people? Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Think about that. More information circulating more rapidly amongst more people. When was the first time we as humanity did that? The Phoenicians, when we learned how to write. And then when we learned how to print books. That was more information circulating more rapidly among more people. In that
time period.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter when. We figured it out.
Yeah, so we will figure it out.
The difference is that the printing books and learning how to write, radio, television, we read about how we figured it out in history books. Right now, this social media thing, we're living in. Yes. Which makes it scary. Yes. But, you got to have confidence in human ingenuity and human intelligence. Okay. You have to have that confidence that we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Okay, that's my takeaway. Last question from me. Last question. What's your North Star with regards to the Kenya-Belgium digital relationship? Maybe not the North Star. What would you like to see in a few years' time and say, I keep asking everybody this question, I did that. I'm proud of that.
Oy.
one thing.
Well,
I'm sure there's many.
For me here, and I'm 120 days away from leaving and retiring. So I'm kind of thinking about, what do I leave behind, and what's my legacy?
Yeah, what's your legacy?
Obviously, it's the Green Embassy.
The Green Embassy.
But that wasn't answering your question, because your question was in the digital space.
I mean, green and digital go together.
What I left behind is that. What I did behind is that.
Okay. Well,
which actually shows, and the reason why it's not so much something that you can show off with or anything. No, what it does, what we did in the embassy shows is that anybody can do something.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have. I mean, you have to have the big projects.
Yes.
You have to have the wind farms.
Yep.
You have to have the geothermal. You have to have the big solar parks, etc. But all of that works even better, or actually only works, if the individual does something as well. I think what we've shown in our embassy is that it can work on an individual level.
Yes.
You can have the single family household be green, or the office space be green.
And you've proved that.
And that's what I want to leave behind. One of my predecessors was the first one to move the embassy to Gigiri. Okay. All the embassies in those days were in CBD.
Oh.
Look where they all are now.
Yeah, they're all in that.
And the first one was the Belgian embassy.
The plush side of town, yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah. But still, all right. But they're all there now.
Yeah.
What I'd very much like to be is that all the embassies follow me and be...
I hope they do
follow our example and be and turn their workspaces into green spaces, because it's also a lot more. Yeah. It's fun to work in.
Well, you're happy, and also without green, there's no digital. If my workforce are not able to feed themselves, then I'll not have a digital workforce. So yes, you've set the trend.
Exactly.
Well, that's it from me. Thank you so much. It's been great to interview you. 120 days left.
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll start that countdown. That's it from us. It's been Tech Talk Africa.